Yeah, yes, welcome back. We have on the line Kevin Annett, who's coming to us from New York City, where today he held a press conference in front of the Canadian consulate in Manhattan. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks, Helford.
Uh, this is a very uh, monumental and multi-part press conference. I'd like to get uh, immediately to something that I found very, very alarming, and that is that you say, uh, uh, "Why I'm standing in front of the Canadian consulate for this past week. I was informed by a British member of Parliament, that the Crown of England's Privy Council in London is considering issuing an order to the Canadian Governor General and Prime Minister's office to have me arrested and prosecuted for what they call sedition." I mean, this is 2014, and you are proceeding uh, under multiple statutes with clear evidence of child genocide, of child trafficking, of molestation. There are multiple witnesses. There is evidence. I've seen this covered extensively for the past 14 years. Could you tell me why the British monarchy is considering this step?
Well, first of all, this is from a very credible source. It's a member of Parliament. It's somebody who has been providing us some very important information over the last 4 years, about the work we're doing and the impact it's having. And he made it clear that his information was that they were considering it on the basis that the work we're doing is hitting very close to home, obviously. And it's no accident that it was announced that this sedition order was being considered the very week that we exposed, if you remember the announcement that came last Monday, when Joseph Ratzinger went to London, the first visit of a pope to England in history. On September 16th, 2010, he went to Holyrood Castle to meet with Queen Elizabeth, and they were closeted in there for about a day or two. It turns out that from the same source, we discovered that Queen Elizabeth actually agreed to place all Anglican clergy under the Catholic policy known as Crimen Solicitanus. That basically orders Anglican priests now, along with Catholic priests, to cover up child abuse. What she just did by that was violated her coronation oath, where she swore to protect the citizens of England. She has agreed now to cover up child rape. This is like an official criminal conspiracy. And naturally, us exposing that puts them in a really dangerous position. She should, under British law now, be forced to abdicate, she and all her heirs, because she's, completely committed treason, in effect. Now, their backs are obviously to the wall on this, and they are now obviously getting some advice that I should be permanently silenced, because in order to stop this, which could lead to a whole chain of events which could topple the whole British monarchy. So, I'm not surprised in the way they're acting that way, but they've been striking at people around me as well. If you remember, 3 of our members over the last little while have been put in British or Canadian prisons on trumped-up charges. One man was put in a mental hospital for 3 days until we got him out, the fellow in London, David Compan. So, they've been hitting around us, but definitely this is aimed at trying to, stop this exposure of the direct link between the Vatican and the Crown in protecting child rapists around the world.
Right. So you mentioned that you're even thinking of seeking political asylum in the U.S. Is that true?
Well, that's right. We have my lawyer in America has an application for political asylum ready to be delivered to the American government, to the Department of Homeland Security. if I am detained and arrested when I go back into Canada, if I'm held for questioning, if I'm detained for any period, there'll be an immediate application for political asylum. They will also make application at the United Nations to have me adopted as a prisoner of conscience and, in effect, a political prisoner in Canada. So that is going to occur as soon as my people lose touch with me, if I'm held incommunicado in any Canadian prison or immigration facility.
Right, right. So, what are you? What should our listeners now do or know or be aware of now that this information has come to public light? Because, I mean, there's there's a great deal of public support to what you're doing, and you are acting on behalf of the public interest here. So how should our viewers and people who are supporting you, what can they do to forestall this any possibility that this grossly unconstitutional and unlawful act should ever take place?
Well, the main thing they can do, Alfred, is to circulate a lot of this information widely so that there's the public awareness. The interview we did last time, when we first brought up this information about Jorge Bergoglio, the present Pope, being mentioned as by an insider in the Argentine government as having organized child trafficking of the children of political prisoners in Argentina during the Dirty Wars. We now have a civil servant there who was at meetings where Bergoglio agreed to organize that trafficking. He is being held incommunicado in Spain as a key witness in our upcoming case, which we hope to launch on March 31st against Bergoglio, Pope Francis, for his role in that child trafficking network. Now, when we put that up on YouTube, we had, within a day, 5,000 or 6,000 hits. People are very interested in this now, and so I would just urge everyone listening to go to itccs.org, get that information out, and if I am arrested, and you'll be one of the first people to know, Alfred, you're on our key contact list, you can let everyone know that what they can do is go down to the nearest Canadian consulate, Canadian tourist or trade center, anywhere they're listening to this in the world, and demand my immediate release. I think that alone will help a lot, because as we found with David Compen and others, as soon as they know they're being watched and they start getting flooded with phone calls, it usually has an effect. So I would say that, but the important thing is to get on board with this campaign, because, like I say, we're commencing the next phase of this global common law court case into child trafficking. And I should say the main reason we held a press conference today in downtown Manhattan was to respond to the United Nations statement on child rape and child trafficking within the Catholic Church. As I said in the news release, which you can read at itccs.org, we refer to the UN statement as toothless. It said some good things. For example, it did say that the Catholic Church was involved in a crime against humanity, and that they were trafficking and raping children and not doing anything about it. They called for the immediate removal of any known child raping priest from the clergy, from the Catholic clergy. But the problem is they have no way of backing this up. They could have, and I made this point in my statement today, if the UN was serious about combating, rape in the Catholic Church, they could instantly revoke the diplomatic status of the Vatican at the UN. They could bar its representation on UN committees. They could encourage governments at the UN to nullify all tax exemptions to Catholic Church agencies. They could bring a lot of direct pressure on the Vatican to toe the line and start obeying the law and protecting children. But they didn't. It was just another toothless statement that couldn't be enforced. So that's why we're taking this next step. Obviously, the UN is colluding, in effect. They're slapping the wrist, but they're not doing anything to stop these crimes committed by the Vatican. And we saw that again last year when the International Criminal Court, after a 3-year investigation into Joseph Ratzinger, said, well, we can't prosecute the man because there's no evidence, even though they had been given 22,000 pieces of evidence showing Pope Benedict had ordered the cover-up of child rape. So, we can't look to these so-called international agencies. We have to do it ourselves, and that's the whole philosophy behind our common law court movement.
Now, the UK Queen and Pope Bergoglio are scheduled to meet in April. What is that about?
What our information is that that's more of the same, in the sense that if you remember from one of our previous postings, when Bergoglio became Pope, he instantly required one of his conditions of becoming Pope is that the whole Holyrood agreement be kept quiet, because that would get in the way of his the big spin doctrine plan that he has been doing, which is to present this appearance that the Catholic Church is reforming itself from within. Well, obviously, if they've signed a deal to expand Crimen Solicitanus, to actually get Anglican priests now to collude with Catholic priests in covering up child rape, obviously that proves their whole attempted reform and change is a big lie. So he had to get rid of anyone connected to the Holyrood Agreement. They got Ratzinger to step down. They got Tarcisio Bertone, the Secretary of State in the Vatican, to step down, which was unprecedented because he was one of the most powerful cardinals in Rome. And if you notice, Queen Elizabeth had canceled her trip to Rome soon after Bergoglio became Pope. He basically said to everybody, look, we got to put this on the back burner for a while. Now he obviously feels safe enough because of, Time magazine nominating him as Man of the Year. All of this hoopla they've done in the media for months, making it seem like Bergoglio is this wonderful man who's trying to change things. Obviously, they feel safe enough now that they know he can continue the plan, which is to merge the Anglican Church with the Catholic Church. That's why Elizabeth Windsor is again betraying her coronation oath to defend her citizens and the Protestant faith, and they are going to arrange the merger of the Church of England and the Church of Rome. So that's now a sign of how confident they're feeling that they can get away with these crimes that they would, openly meet.
And so that the first step of the merger is around what is called the Holyrood Agreement. Now, could you state again what the Holyrood Agreement is?
Well, it was as a condition for the merger of the two churches, Elizabeth Windsor agreed, and this is from our source in the British government, Elizabeth Windsor agreed to apply the canon law known as Crimen Solicitanus to all Anglican clergy. And that law, you can read about it at hiddenolonger.com in Appendix 9. It's been around since 1929. It orders all priests to cover up child abuse. When a child is raped in any parish in the Catholic and now Anglican Church, anywhere in the world, the priest and the bishop are to conceal the crime. They're to silence the victim, not tell the police, and anyone who does talk is not only excommunicated, but now under new rules that Bergoglio brought in, Pope Francis brought in on July 11th, it's now criminalized, so you can go to a Vatican prison if you talk about child rape. That's now any Anglican priest. So we're talking, Anglican priests in Canada, in the United States, England, anywhere, can now face Vatican imprisonment for talking about, exposing rape done against children or any harm done to children in their churches. So it's an enormous act of treason by a British monarch to do that, to violate the laws of her own country, child protection laws, and in effect tell her priest to break the law and to help child rape. She should instantly abdicate or be removed. I mean, if the British people were following their own constitutional law.
Now this trial with the common law, with the International Common Law Courts of Justice, will start in Brussels, which is the capital of the European Union, on March 31st, which is about 2 weeks prior to the meeting of Pope Francis, and who is the Pope, the de facto head of the Catholic Church, and Queen Elizabeth, who is the head of the Church of England, of the Anglican Church. And both of these will be defendants in this action. So do you see their meeting as a continuation of the conspiracy that's alleged in that trial?
Absolutely, it's a continuation. And like I say, it's because they feel they can get away with it, that they're going ahead. Now we have to prove them wrong. It's no accident that the directorate of the common law court decided to move up. My original information is they were going to wait till April or May, but they deliberately moved up the date of launching the first hearings into this trial against Bergoglio on March 31st in order to coincide with this obvious, move by Elizabeth Windsor to facilitate the merger of the Anglican Church with the Catholic before she herself steps down. Now, people should know as well that it isn't just Jorge Bergoglio being named as the primary defendant. The Jesuit order is also being targeted by this next lawsuit of the common law court. They're instrumental in the child trafficking around the world and in the concealment of it. Elizabeth Windsor again, and other officials of the royal family who are known, who have been known to be directly involved in child trafficking in England and other places. We have key witnesses who will come forward about that. So this will all again be starting on March 31st. I'll be over in Europe to work with the court at that time during April. So it should be very interesting, and we definitely plan to have a public presence wherever these two criminals are meeting. Bergoglio and Elizabeth Windsor.
Well, one of the things that is coincidental but very interesting is that this trial is being held in Brussels, in Belgium, and within the last while, a Belgian member of Parliament released a list of known pedophiles in Belgium that included the former King of Belgium, as well as former ministers of government, and most, many of the power elite. I mean, prominent attorneys, bankers, people of business, social elites. Our news agency has a copy of that list, which we can make available to you.
Please do, yes. It's no accident. Again, there's a lot happening in Belgium. We have a number of really important contacts working there, as well as with the tribunal and the court. But it's important to know that a lot of that information is going to be in the statement of claim of the Citizens Prosecution Office, for this next case.
So perhaps the since these are worldwide pedophile networks, according to the testimony that's been coming out in some of the English trials, perhaps this pedophile network in Belgium is conspiratorially interrelated to the Vatican and the UK networks that are the subject of the trial.
Quite possibly. These are, as we've talked about, Alfred, these are very old European families that are interconnected. The Vatican, the Crown of England, they're all the different masks. And these, they're like old criminal families, and but they're behind a lot of this stuff. So it's no coincidence at all. And I think the important thing here is that people are connecting the dots a lot more effectively now, and that's what we found with the response already to what we put out. There's a lot, the number of emails and calls I'm getting all the time from people who are eyewitnesses, survivors of these child trafficking networks. It's increasing exponentially.
Right. So will this be carried live on the internet, or will videos of the testimony be placed on the internet?
Yeah, my understanding is, as opposed to the first case we did, where the key evidence was posted after on the internet, we hope to live stream a number of the court sessions. We're still trying to make the technical arrangements about that, because as you can imagine, people who come forward publicly to work on this are targeted instantly. We made that mistake in Canada. We came out too soon, and we had 4 or 5 of our native organizers actually killed off in the process. So to prevent that and to protect, the witnesses and the organizers, we've acted a lot more in a more underground fashion. And so there's had to be that security component. But because of the level of support we're getting now, including from politicians and lawyers and judges in Europe, they felt more confident to do this publicly. So that's what we look forward to after the case starts on March 31st.
Now, what role will the former Pope Ratzinger play in these proceedings?
Well, don't forget there's a standing arrest warrant out for him from the first the verdict that came in late February of 2013. Within a few weeks of his resignation, he knew that verdict was coming down. It's one of the reasons he was forced out, and Bergoglio came in. But there's a standing arrest warrant for him. He knows that if he comes out of the Vatican, where he's still hiding, he can face that citizen's arrest. There is, as I mentioned before, I believe on one of our shows, the Spanish government is one of the governments that have been closest to issuing an arrest warrant if he appears, in their territory. So, again, we're these are convicted felons. They're fugitives from justice, and we're going to enforce that warrant if we're able to.
Now, do you from what you know and from your sources, do you believe that former Pope Ratzinger maintains an active role with Pope Francis in this ongoing conspiracy?
Well, they're kind of they definitely need to protect Ratzinger because he knows so much. If they didn't protect him, they'd just kill him, which is usually what you do to inconvenient popes. But my information is he's still alive. He's you see, what I'm learning about Ratzinger is he was very integral on a personal level in a number of these child trafficking networks, and including child sacrificial cults. 2 different women have identified him, having seen him. These are women who survived these child sacrificial cult networks, one in America, and we know about 2 Nienhaus in Holland. Her testimony was posted last May 8th at itccs.org. But, so Ratzinger is implicated personally in the torture and killing of children. According to these eyewitnesses, these were strange rituals, which, anyone who knows anything about satanic ritual abuse knows the horrendous nature of these things. And so naturally they want to keep all that hidden, and they've got a vested interest, like any criminals do, in protecting one another. So yeah, he still is playing a role in all this.
Right. Have you, if with these purported plans of the Privy Council considering issuing an order to the Canadian Governor General and Prime Minister's office to have you arrested and prosecuted for what they call sedition, what they're doing is validating the work of the International Tribunal into crimes of church and state, aren't they?
They are. They're in a catch-22. If they ignore me, they're acknowledging our legitimacy. This is the advantage we're in, because they were issued a summons. And when you ignore a summons and don't contest something, you're tacitly agreeing with the charge. But if they do respond and do something like lock me up, they are confirming that yes, this is a threat. Yes, we're guilty, because look at the action we're taking against this man and this movement that's just trying to bring out the truth. So yeah, I think they're in a catch-22. They've got to do something, they know, and frankly, arresting me would be an act of desperation. I think it would be very stupid on their part. I'd be surprised if they went ahead and did that. But even if they do, it will certainly bring a lot more attention. It's like when David Compan went to jail, and then after he was released in London, Rianne, our organizer in Coventry, England, said they now have 50 to 60 people involved in the movement. They had a dozen before. People flocked to them after, because they saw that we could do something. We could get these people out of prison, that they backed off. And that's incredibly encouraging for people. I think the same thing would have happening on an even bigger scale if they tried arresting me right about now.
I I don't have any memory of any sitting monarch of the UK issuing an order to a Canadian Governor General and Prime Minister's office to have a Canadian citizen arrested and prosecuted for sedition. Do you?
Not to my knowledge, although I did have an ancestor back in the 1700s who was put in an English jail for challenging the Crown and the Church of England. So, I maybe it runs in the family or something.
Yeah, no, right. But I mean, there has not been a precedent in Canadian history for the Crown of England's Privy Council issuing an order to the Canadian Governor General and Prime Minister's office to have a Canadian citizen arrested and prosecuted for sedition.
No, not to my knowledge, although it's on the books. After the restoration of the monarchy in the 17th century, they made it a crime for anyone to advocate a republic, given the death penalty if you advocated the abolition of the monarchy. I think what they're doing is just brushing the dust off these old laws and trying to use star chamber tactics to push through, the secret arrest and trial of somebody under these sedition laws, which, again, it was interesting. Prime Minister Cameron in England removed about 350 laws from the books, these antiquated laws, and they were going to take that law out, making it a crime to advocate a republic, but they didn't. At the last minute, they kept it on the books. This was just 6 months ago or something. So why would they keep these anti-sedition laws on the books unless it was for a circumstance like this, where they must be very worried about what's coming out now, otherwise they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, but Canada is a separate jurisdiction from the UK. And Canada has a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And here in Canada, it is not a crime to advocate a republic. In fact, it falls squarely under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In fact, John Manley, who was Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, was a staunch anti-monarchist and in favor of a republic. And child abuse and child genocide is illegal here in Canada as well, and throughout the world, and a violation of Canadian criminal statutes and of international conventions. So the Crown of England Privy Council would have no legal standing to order a Canadian Governor General and Prime Minister to have a Canadian citizen and arrested for sedition under any of these conditions.
It was illegal for the United Church to throw me out and destroy my life, but they got away with it. The courts of British Columbia turned a blind eye. It was illegal. I mean, the Governor General in Australia removed the Labour government of Gough Whitlam in 1975 when he wouldn't sign a treaty with the Americans. When he wanted to ban nuclear weapons from Australia, the Governor General removed him from office. And they constitutionally were in the same relationship with England that Canada is. So theoretically, it's true what you're saying, but the Governor General could, in theory, do that. As the actual head of state in Canada is not the Prime Minister. We know that. It's under the constitutional monarchy. We're still connected to that. So they could do it, and they'd have a lot to answer for. But frankly, how many members of Parliament would go to bat for me? I mean, we've tried that route, and it doesn't work. And so they might, I think
that given the evidence that is coming out now, with the bodies of children that have been found here in BC recently, that completely validate your campaign, going back to the original experience that you had, and in Ontario as well. the mysterious death of the direct eyewitness to the abduction by the Queen of England of 10 Aboriginal children in
Hmm.
1964 in Kamloops. These
Yep.
are all valid prima facie evidence
Hmm.
that support you're taking a position that there is probable cause for a public inquiry
Yep.
as to whether the British monarch has committed violation of public trust that would seriously impair her position as the head of state of Canada. And I take that as a Canadian citizen. I take that position as a Canadian citizen myself.
Well, I agree, Alfred, and I think 58% of Canadians want a severing of ties with the monarchy too. So we do have the majority of people in Canada on our side. I think we have to push the issue a lot more. We have to take that step and say to people, it's time to form a convention to call out for the rewriting of the Constitution and the abolition of the monarchy and declaring a republic in Canada. I think that's the
Yeah.
framework we need for all this. Otherwise, you keep going up against these crown-appointed judges. The system that it has everyone boxed into this notion that you cannot criticize the Queen, you cannot criticize the Pope. All of this has to be challenged if we're going to have any real accountability and democracy in this country.
Right, right. So today's February 7th, 2014. What are your next steps between now and the beginning of the trial date in Brussels in March 31st? Will you be serving the various defendants in those proceedings?
That's right.
And other
Yes,
things.
yes. We're preparing the case. I'm working with the body that's doing that, the putting together the evidence. I'm coming back into Canada fairly soon, and so if there's any problem at the border, like I say, you'll know, and our other people will know. That'll be up at itccs.org. But assuming that I'm not touched, I'll be working in Canada, the U.S., and then over in Europe prior to the starting of that date. Or the court date, March 31st, that we're going to have an initial hearing, like in any court procedure. There'll be discovery hearings where we will invite those who are named as defendants to come and look at the evidence, present their own counter evidence. As is the pretrial steps in this case. So that'll be happening, obviously during early April. But the case is being prepared as we speak, and I'm quite integral to that.
Right. Now, I really want to press this. Has the government of Canada to date bothered you at all for any of your actions on as field secretary of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State?
Well, they've been bothering me for almost 20 years, Alfred, as you know. Everything from destroying my family and livelihood to Revenue Canada constantly on my tail, even though I've had no taxable income. The Attorney General in British Columbia issuing a do not renew on my driver's license. I haven't been able to renew my driver's license, even though I had minimal fines on it. It's that constant harassment, the attacks on all of our work, the smear campaigns over the internet. I am continually targeted by the government and those who work with them. I was imprisoned by the British government, as you know, in May 2011 at Stansted Airport. I was held for a whole day in an immigration prison there, fingerprinted and photographed, and then expelled from the country. So yes, I have already faced these attacks. And I want to say publicly now that I challenge them. If they're going to do that, they are going to be named as accessories to the concealment of genocide and crimes against children. And that's a very serious indictable offense. And I don't think that any just or person of conscience who works with the Canadian government would do that, let alone abide by their oath of loyalty to a convicted felon like Elizabeth Windsor.
Now, what can people who are supporters of this process do to support you and support the the trial and the common law courts of justice going forward in Brussels?
Well, you can contact us and form groups to take action publicly through protests, to support the common law courts that are going to be forming. Write to me, hiddenfromhistory1@gmail.com. I'm going to leave a phone number as well, because my emails are continually sabotaged. It's not a reliable method. Or one of our main offices in the U.S., the phone number is 386-323-5774. That's 386-323-5774. And you can get updates and more information from there. But I would say use the information at itccs.org and contact us to agree to form these action groups that are going to be mobilized to support the action of the court and do a lot of on-the-ground work, like, for example, serving the warrants. There are going to be other people in Canada named as part of this case. And this is ongoing work. So I would say basically get on board with this. Don't just circulate information. We need your involvement actively in this work as well.
Thank you. And so you'll be keeping us. How can people best keep informed of the progress?
Well, like I say, we post a lot of our stuff regularly at itccs.org. We do have a new website as well for the Common Law Court of Justice. It's iclcj.com for International Common Law Court of Justice, iclcj.com. So those two websites will have a lot of our, the regular updates and everything. But I would say, too, if people are in touch with you, Alfred, you're going to be getting all of the recent news about what's happening to me and the work as it happens. So I would say if people are connected to you, you're also a good source.
Good, great. Yeah, and we also have a Facebook group called itccs.org.
That's right.
Kevin Annett, so people who are interested can also find it there. Do you have any words that you'd like to leave our listeners with at this time?
I would say to everyone, listen, spread the word. If you know, especially anyone in Canada who's taken an oath of allegiance to the Crown, now this could be a member of Parliament, a policeman, a soldier, a judge, a civil servant, somebody who works with Customs and Immigration especially, tell them that it's time now to realize that oath is null and void. It is no longer binding on you, because constitutionally and legally, Canada cannot be under the Crown anymore because it's a convicted criminal organization, just like the Vatican is, the Catholic Church. So it's time to realize that we are free to act according to our conscience and not these bogus oaths of allegiance to criminals. And I would say for people to do a lot of soul reflection and search your heart and mind and realize it's time to switch allegiance and get on board with justice and the common law court movement. And, it's up to each one of us to do that.
Thank you, Kevin. And we want to thank you for taking time out to be with us today, and we look forward to your coming back as events develop.
Okay, thank you, Alfred. And again, it's always great to be on your show and to have your constant support. It means a lot to me personally. And as soon as I'm back in the country safely, I'll be sure to let you know, so you can let people know that I'm still on the move.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay then. Well, safe journey.
Thank you.
And onward and upward.
Right. Thanks, Alfred.
Good enough. Thank you.